So the moment I go down to get the drugs, right, I look in the rearview mirror, there's an AK-47 to my head. And the guy was like, don't try it, buddy. I'm gonna blow your head off. So I put the car back in drive. They dragged me out the car. You know what I'm saying? They dragged him out the car, and the dude standing on top of me like this. That moment right there, my life flashed in front of me. My life flashed in front of me. But when we opened this drug up, it was over $7,000 worth of drugs.
Wow.
Yeah, worth of heroin. So I gave it to him. I was like, man, sell it for me. Just give me this amount. You know what I'm saying? When you sell it, you take the rest. You know what I mean? OGs are top, like, what at this point, they were all African guys, but they were all gangsters. They're credit card fraud, cocaine. I mean, these are guys who are doing it.
Previously, we were talking with our brother. I call him Apostle Prince Judah. And his stories, it's like I'm watching Power, the TV series. It's like I'm watching a movie or something. I'm listening to a movie or something. I'm glad God has taken him away from that life, and then he is now not in that life. So last week we were talking about welcome again, my brother Prince.
Thank you for the opportunity again to be here and to be able to share my story, and just thank God for the opportunity. Yeah.
Awesome. So previously we were talking about your story, how you came from Sierra Leone to Connecticut, and then from Connecticut you moved to Columbus, and Columbus, just the peer pressure, just you trying to, an African kid struggling to fit in. You want to be loved. You want to have the approval of your peers, especially in the African community.
Yeah.
You did a lot of things. A lot of bad things. You left home and you selling drugs, and you guys were arrested basically.
Yeah.
And your friend was sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Yeah.
And so after, so you said the police lady told you that you don't belong here, right?
Exactly.
So you don't belong here, so you gotta get out of here. So after you left the police station, let's continue from there. What happened?
Yeah, so that night, that day, they had basically let me go. You know, they took my mugshot and put me in the newspapers. You know, so everybody I went to school with knew that. Yeah, man, Prince, and that his friend got caught selling drugs, doing this, doing that. So everybody that knew us in high school, man, was like, man, they gone. But it was the norm. Like, it was not like a surprise to them, because most people that we graduated with was either in jail, killed, or, you know what I'm saying, in that life. So for them to see that in a paper, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, we're shocked. Like, you know what I'm saying? But people wasn't expecting me to be in that situation, because even though, I hung out with them, but I wasn't a guy that got in trouble most of the times in high school. Like, you know what I'm saying? My thing was, I just wanted to be around the cool kids. I just wanted to be cool, like, you know what I'm saying? So that I didn't want to be, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to look nice, wanted to hang out with the cool kids, sit at the cool kid table at lunch. You know, that's what it was. So, you know, I played football, played soccer. So, but I didn't do some of the things that they did, you know what I'm saying, until I graduated and I chose to, get into the drug thing. And it was mainly because of money, not because, I'm a drug dealer, or I understood that, you know what I'm saying, I was learning as I go. I didn't really understand the game as far as, you know what I'm saying, some certain people knew. So, but I knew what comes with it. You know what I'm saying? I knew that, you know what I'm saying, of course, prison comes with it. I knew that, you know what I'm saying, some people get killed. Of course, like I said, last week when we was talking, I got robbed, you know what I'm saying, during one of our first transaction. I got robbed, and of course, we got jammed up with the police and stuff like that. So after that situation happened and the police let me go that day, I really had to rethink about my life. So of course we got evicted out of that apartment complex we was in. When I came back, actually when the police officer took me to Columbus State, and I went and sat in a class, I sat there for about maybe 15, 20 minutes, and my mind was just like boggling. I wasn't hearing nothing the teacher was saying. Nobody in the class knew what I just went through that day. So I just got up, took my bag and just left the class, and then got in a bus. And at that time I wasn't driving, so I was taking the Coda bus. I got in the Coda bus and just came back home.
Your dad had taken away his car finally?
Huh?
Did your dad take away his car finally?
Yeah. The car wasn't, it wasn't really in my possession anymore. So, I came home, and my friends that were home, they was like, man, where you been? Like, they didn't know anything of that happened. Because mind you, like, it happened in the afternoon. So most of my friends were like either at work or they were gone. Like, it's usually in the evening that everybody get together and, we're doing things. But so everybody I was like, bro, we just got jammed up. We just got busted. But before I left the police station, the police did warn me though. He says, man, look, whatever you got to do to get out of this life, hurry up and do it, because you don't want to see what a drug bust look like. You know what I'm saying? What he was basically telling me in codes was, the next thing we're going to do is bust into the house. When we bust into the house, what would happen, you don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? And that it looks ugly. I mean, they're tearing up things. They're hitting anybody that stands in the way, peeps. If they, you know what I'm saying? They find, and at that point where we was living, we had guns in the house. We had drugs in the ceilings. I mean, we had things in the house. So when I came and I told them told my friends what had happened, they was like, what? You know what I'm saying? And then so we just started, everybody scattered, everybody just started figuring like what to do next. So they evicted us, we had to leave the apartment. So me and my other friend that was staying there, we had to stay in a hotel for quite a while. We could throw some of our stuff away. So that took me out of the drug game. Mind you, remember that when I was in the police car, I had prayed and I asked God to take me out of this. So when that happened, when I actually didn't go to jail and that happened, I at first I didn't think about it like, oh, it's God that just helped me. I just thought like, oh man, it's lucky. You know what I'm saying? I'm lucky. But it was later on and I realized like, wow, like God really heard my prayer. Like, you know what I mean? So, and then, so we got home, we got evicted and we came back. I got into the hotel and I started really thinking like, okay, I got to get my life together. I got to really, you know what I'm saying? So now remember when I first left my parents' house, when I first graduated high school, the friend that I went to stay with, so I called him up again. I was like, man, look, I got to come back and lay on your couch for a couple weeks, man. He's like, what's going on? I thought you had your own place. I was like, you don't even want to know the story. You know what I mean? So I went back and lived with him for a while, laying on his couch. But at this point, he was staying with his roommate, and his roommate was an African-American guy who also like smoked weed and stuff like that. Now, after this situation happened, I didn't want nothing to do with weed. I didn't want nothing to do with marijuana, no drugs, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? So when I went back to stay with my friend, you know what I'm saying? He had this African-American roommate that was like smoked weed heavily. You know what I'm saying? He didn't necessarily sell it, but he was smoking it. So the police had charged me with attempt to sell, a misdemeanor with attempt to sell and stuff like that. So I had to show up in court to go and pay the fund for the marijuana, and I had to stay out of trouble for 1 year. If I got in trouble within that 1 year, I'm going to jail. You know what I'm saying? So that was the case. Okay, you got a misdemeanor. We're cutting you a slack. This is your first offense. You know what I'm saying? So stay out of trouble for a year. If within this year we see drugs again on you, we see you in any case containing drugs, weapons, or anything like that, you're going to jail. Basically you're telling us that you like this life. You know what I'm saying? So for that whole year, I had to stay out of trouble. So I was hiding out and I was working. And staying with my friend, sleeping on his couch. His roommate me and him didn't really get along. He was a gamer. So like at night, and I was sleeping on the couch because it was a 2-bedroom. In the middle of the night, this dude would get on Halo game, man. And he would be playing Halo with different people from. He had his microphone on, and I gotta go to work in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And this guy would be playing this game
In the living room?
in the living room.
And you was sleeping on the couch in the living room.
And he had lights on. So I was so pissed, man. Why this dude doing this thing? But like, I was trying to contain myself because, you know what I'm saying? At the same time, I know they would let me stay at the house, you know what I'm saying? And he was just trying to be mean and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Basically saying, bro, like, you don't even pay rent. You just here taking up space. And sometimes he would bring friends over and girls over in the middle of the night, and it would be, I got to wait till they leave before I go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they'll be over till like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I got to go to work at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So he was just being mean. So I was like, you know what? I didn't want to get back to my ways, but like this dude is pushing me, man. So one day he went to work, man. I took bleach and I put it all in his games. So I took bleach and I put it all in his game console, man, and stuff like that. So he came home one day, he thought he was about to play the game. Like, you know what I'm saying? He came home, turned the game on, the game wasn't working. I was like, yeah, man, you're evicted.
Did he like suspect anything?
Oh yeah, he suspected. But I was like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Was he mad?
He was mad, man. He lost his game. He was mad. Thing burned out, man. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Like, you don't want to play the game. So, you know, I had to do something, man. Because it was either that or just keep putting up with his, you know what I'm saying, stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, I talked to my friend who is the leaseholder, basically, at the house, you know what I'm saying, who was an African guy, you know what I'm saying? So he talked to him, told him, like, look, man, just get the TV in your room or something like that, you know what I mean? So, but long story short, man, he wasn't really trying to work with me. So I knew that I had to try to get my own place ASAP. You know what I'm saying? So the area where I was working, there was an apartment available. So I went ahead and got me a 1-bedroom and stuff like that. But before I left, one day I'm laying down. Now, mind you, during this time that I'm staying at his place, I had went to court to pay the fine for the marijuana that they caught on me and the offense and stuff like that, the misdemeanor. So I went to court. And when you go to court, you sit in this row of people who have to see the judge. So before you go sit down, you got to go and sign your name, and you got to go before this lady that basically tells you, like, okay, what are you here for, this and that, and you tell them, okay, I'm here for this, I'm here for that, and he said, okay, do you have a lawyer? I'm like, no, I don't have a lawyer. Do you need a state attorney present, something like that? You know what? He said, basically, tell me basically when you go before the judge, tell the judge this, tell the judge that, you're not guilty. You know what I'm saying? Do this, and then the judge will basically tell you to pay a certain fine. So I said all of that. So the lady told me all of that. So I went and sat down. While I'm sitting down, all of a sudden a man comes out of the, you know what I'm saying, one of the rooms in the courtroom, calls my name, Prince. I said, here I am. He says, he's while he's calling my name, he has a file in his hand. While he's calling my name, he's walking to the front door. He said, follow me. I followed him. He says, you can go home. Your case has been dismissed. I haven't seen the judge yet. He tells me my case has been dismissed. So I walked out of the place, get in the elevator. I'm excited, happy. Okay, my case is dismissed. They didn't even tell me to pay the fine or nothing. This is strange. So I walked out. I'm going home, right? I go home. I'm thinking this is a big like slap on the wrist. Like I'm free, this and that. So a couple weeks later, I'm staying at my friend's house. You know, this African-American guy, you know, mind you, sometimes he bring his friends home and I'm in the living room. They kicking in the living room. They're drinking. They're smoking. But one thing led to another. The blunt reached me. While they passing the blunt, it get to me, and you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be a left out, you know what I'm saying? So I took the blunt and I hit the blunt, you know what I'm saying? So I started smoking at that time. Mind you, I prayed in that police car and I told God, if you save me from this, I will never go back to this thing again. And I start smoking again. I start drinking again. So 2-3 weeks after that, I'm laying down, you know, on the couch one morning, early morning. I remember the day was a snowy day. It was a huge snow that came that day too. I get a phone call from my dad. Mind you, all this that has happened, my parents don't know nothing. They don't know anything that happened because I'm
You
trying.
never told them.
Never told them because I'm trying to keep them out of this because I know if they hear, you know what I'm saying, I told you so. I'm gonna hear a bunch of, you know what I'm saying, stuff. You know, I'm this point, I'm grown. So I'm trying, I'm like, let me handle my problems, you know what I'm saying? So I'm laying on the couch early in the morning, man, a huge snowstorm. I get a phone call from my dad. Prince. Yes, Dad, what's going on? Where are you? I'm sleeping, Dad, what's going on? We just got a letter that says there is a warrant out for your arrest. They said that you never showed up to court. They don't have any record of you showing up to court. You're running away from your court case. You have fines that you need to pay. I'm like, what are they talking about? I showed up to court. I signed in. I went before the lady that told me, this is what you need to tell the judge, this and that. I sat down. A lawyer came and with a file in his hand told me my case has been dismissed. I can go home. So why now they sending me? So I called and I went, that morning I put on my boots, put on my jacket, got in the snow. I couldn't drive to my mom's house because they said in a letter, it says if they see you driving, if they pull you over, this and that, you're going straight to prison.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Because basically I'm running away. You know what I'm saying? So I walked over like 45-minute walk to my mom's house. Get to my mom's house, I get the letter. There's a number on there that says turn yourself in, basically. I called him like, okay, I don't understand what's going on. I went to court. They dismissed my case. I signed in. They don't have no record. They looked in the system. They didn't have no record of me ever signing in. They look in the cameras. I've never showed up. I told him the lawyer that told me my case is in, that lawyer never worked there. That lawyer doesn't exist. So I'm like, what is this? What is going on? And then it dawned on me. I remembered, God, if you save me from this, I will never go back to doing drugs. I would never. I broke my part of the promise, the bargain that I made with God. And God is basically reversing things on me here. So I'm like, what? So I had to go back. I had to go and turn myself back in. I turned myself back in, and they told me I had to pay the fines. And now, like, they told me, like, okay, you know, we don't know what happened, but it's good that you came and turned yourself in yourself. If we would have booked you, you would have been in trouble. But since you know what I'm saying, you're saying you showed up, we don't have record of you showing up, but since you came and turned yourself back in, we're not going to add anything to it. You know what I'm saying? You just go ahead and pay the fine, and we're going to give you a misdemeanor, which means that you stay out of trouble, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. I mean, misdemeanor was on my record for over 2-3 years, and I had to stay out of trouble.
Hey there, sorry to interrupt. I and my team, we're on a journey of recording testimonies to glorify God and to edify his people. And we cannot do this without your support. The only way you can support us is by subscribing to this channel. Like it and share the link. Also, don't forget to comment. But we would want you to subscribe because that is how we are going to grow, and that is how we'll be able to do more content like this. So please make sure you subscribe and you share this link to every one of your friends and family members. Also, if you love our work and you are in the United States looking for a media company to shoot your commercials, shoot your music videos, shoot your weddings, party, or anything media related, you can reach out to my team. That is DH Multimedia, and we will take a very good care of you. Let's go back to the testimony.
For those times, and I can't come in contact with no police, no drugs, no nothing. So, long story short, after that I had to move out and leave that environment. At this point, I told myself, oh, look, man, if I stay here any longer, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm not gonna be able to keep my own side of this promise. So I got me a 1-bedroom, moved out, you know what I'm saying, start staying on my own and stuff like that. And before I actually moved out, now my parents they found out what was going on because, of course, they received the letter. They found out what was going on. So before I actually moved out and got my own place, I went back to my parents' house. My parents was like, so where are you staying at now? Well, I'm staying with my friends, laying on the couch. They said, you need to come home. You need to come home. So they opened the door. I came home because at this point they were thinking like, okay, we need to try to protect you because we don't want you to go to jail. So I went to my parents' house. I'm staying over there because I told them I was like, where I'm staying right now, it's not a good place either. I mean, this guy's smoking and stuff like that. So I stayed at my parents' house for quite a while. And while I'm staying there, of course, remember the situation with me and my dad. Didn't see eye to eye, man. And again, so we get back into it, man. We can't see eye to eye, you know what I'm saying? But while I'm staying at my parents' house, I was able to save some money and I bought myself a car. You know what I'm saying? At this point, bought my own car. So me and my dad my late dad started getting into it again. And I had another friend. Now, while I was staying at my friend's house, he introduced me to another friend of that ended up becoming a friend of mine. And this friend of mine, he had gotten shot a long time ago while he was basically living the same lifestyle, smoking, drinking, you know what I'm saying, being gang banging and stuff like that. He went to a party and he had got shot. And when he got shot, the bullet hit his spine and he became paralyzed. So while I was staying at my friend's house, he introduced me to this guy. And me and him, you know what I'm saying, ended up becoming friends. So when I was staying at my mom's house, when I moved to my mom's house, I was staying with them, and me and my dad got into it. I had to look at my options. Like, look, I can't stay at this house, man. Me and my dad gonna keep hitting heads. At this point, I'm an adult, but he's not treating me like an adult, so I can't really stay here. And if I can't stay here and I can't go back to my friend's house because this guy's smoking and I don't want to get back into smoking, let me hit this new friend up. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he can spot me a couple weeks, maybe a month, 2, before I can get my own place. At this point, I didn't have, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have enough money saved up to get an apartment. You know what I mean? So I called him up. He was like, yeah, man, you can come and stay here. I packed all my stuff in my car, my shoes, clothes, packed it all in my car, in my trunk. And my friend basically told me, you know what I'm saying, I can come and crash over at his place. He was living with his mom, by the way, but he talked to his mom and I was able to stay in his room and sleep on the ground. So I was sleeping on the ground, bro. Wow. You know what I'm saying? So I went, I'm like, this is my only option at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I went, man, and then like literally, bro, like I had to sleep on the ground. My stuff was in my car, so every morning I would go in my trunk, get a pair of shoes, get a pair of clothes, you know what I'm saying, go inside, take a shower, you know what I'm saying, and take my clothes out, put it back in my car, you know, and then, you know, back up and stuff like that. So it's basically I was living in prison or something like that. Like it was like a prison situation, like, you know what I mean? Very uncomfortable.
And the apartment was small, I presume.
Yeah, it was a 2-bedroom, and I'm saying it was him, his younger brother, and his mom. His mom had one of the bedroom, and him, because of his situation, he had one of the other bedroom, and his younger brother was basically sleeping in the, you know what I'm saying, sleeping in the living room. Mm-hmm. So when I went in, I couldn't sleep in the living room because, you know what I'm saying, his younger brother was already sleeping there. So I was sleeping in his room, but, you know what I'm saying, by his bed. Like I had to make a little small pallet next to his bed where I was sleeping. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was a tight situation, but that was my only option.
I thought that you would be sleeping on the like in the living room or something.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep in the living room because his younger brother was also sleeping in the living room. You know what I'm saying? And he was taking up the couch, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So it was a tight situation, you know what I mean? But while I was staying with him though, like, you know, this was a guy that he had given up on life. So I realized later down the road that God took me there for a reason, because he had given up on life because of what he had gone through in life. He got shot. All his friends that he had left him. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have any hope. He basically wanted to take his own life. You know what I'm saying? So when I went there, at the point I told him my story and how God saved me, set me free from this going to prison, and how God is real. Now, I started preaching to this guy about the God that just saved me from this prison, from going to jail. And I'm still trying to build my relationship or trying to get to know this God myself. You know what I mean? But then me and him start talking, and all of a sudden, like, we start going to church together. And I got him a job at my job where I was working. So now I gave him hope. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is a guy, he's in a wheelchair. Oh. He's in the woods because he was paralyzed from the gunshot. He was paralyzed. He was always at home, depressed. You know what I'm saying? Nothing was, you know what I'm saying? So when I went to his house, you know, him and his mom too wasn't getting along also, because his mom basically was looking at him like a burden, because that's the day when he got shot and became paralyzed, his mom got to basically take care of him now. And this is a grown man, you know what I'm saying? So when I went to his house and, by the grace of God, God started using me to just talk to him, encourage him and stuff like that, giving him hope, telling him about what I just went through and what I've been going through and stuff like that, give him hope so that he won't basically take his own life. And I was able, by the grace of God, I was able to talk to him about what he can do to make amends with his mom. I told him on Valentine's Day, giving him his mom's flowers and stuff like that. And so I got him a job, me and him, every day. Like, I had a 2-door car, you know what I'm saying? And I remember the car, it was a red Eagle Talent car. I don't know if you ever heard of the name, but it's like made by Mitsubishi. It's called Eagle Talent. So it's 2 doors. So, you know what I'm saying? So, but he had a wheelchair. So every day we're going to work, he gets in the car, I open the other side of the door, I pack up his wheelchair, and I will put the wheelchair in the back of the car, in the back of the seat. You know what I mean? So every day we'll go through that, and then we start going to church together and stuff like that. We start going to church together, and we start praying together. We start getting to know God together and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We start getting to know God, me and him. So after a while, at the same time I was working, I was saving money because my mind has always been get my own place. You know what I mean? So times went on. Well, me and him now committed in church. We start praying in tongues. We start, seeing the power of God, really getting to know God at this point. And, I had got some money, was able to get my own place, moved out on my own and stuff like that, and he will come and visit me at my place. So, with all of this, one of the things that I realized about my life while I got into church is that the reason why I went through the path that I went through, it's not only because I made the wrong decision. It was because God allowed me to go through those paths so that God can give me a story, a testimony that was meant for certain group of people, which was the younger generation, the young people. So because the moment I got in contact with this young guy that was shot, he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't do nothing for himself. He was basically almost in a vegetative state. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he can move his arms and stuff like that. He can, act, but he can walk. He couldn't work. But when I went into his life, God gave him hope. He was revived. You know what I mean? So, that just told me right there, like, yo, Prince, you went through what you went through because God wanted you to see a part of life that most people go through in life, most young people, and God was going to use your story to change the life of young people. So in the process of me going to church, I realized my calling. I started preaching. I started ministering. I started preaching. I didn't know I had all these gifts. I didn't know I could preach. I didn't know I can, I didn't know, a lot of stuff started coming out of me. So all my friends that I have walked with all these years, from high school, from middle school to high school, I had separated myself from all of that. No more drugs, no more guns, no more, So I limited my circle. And it was me and this young guy for a long time. We was just hanging out, going to work together. We went to, events together and stuff like that. And by the grace of God, I can say that through this path, I was able to touch not only his life, but many young people's life, just ministering and talking to them about the God that heard my prayer behind that police car that day. And I saw how God is. Many people don't realize that when you pray, God hears your prayer. But what you do next, after you pray, determines how the rest of your life will be. Are you going to live according to God's standards? Because when you decide that, you're going to give your life to God, when you decide that you are going to commit your life to serve God, God is watching you. You will go through tests. Me going to steal with my friend, and my friend at that time, while I was sleeping on the couch with his roommate, and he was smoking in my face, that was a test moment. God wanted to see, okay, did you really mean what you said behind that police car? If I saved you from going to prison, are you really going to serve me? Are you really going to leave everything that you said you was doing to give your life fully to me? And that test that God put me through, I have failed the test. And the moment I failed the test, I saw that the enemy came in and almost took me back to jail. But then boom, I realized that I was like, oh, I went back on my word. I didn't fulfill my end of the my end of the commitment. You know, so the scripture called God a covenant keeping God. When God keeps his part of the covenant, are you keeping your part of the covenant? Are you keeping your part of the, you know what I'm saying? The obligation. And a lot of people don't know this because they think that, oh, God is so merciful. God, yes, he is. God is merciful. God is love. But God also expect, the Bible says, from whom much is given, much is required. So whatever God has given you, whatever gift, whatever talent that God has given you, you will be tried. You will be tested. You will be tempted. But are you going to be able to stand? Are you going to realize your fault? Are you going to, you know, stop blaming people? Oh, this person. Like I could have a lot of reason to quit. Blaming, you know what I'm saying, the part of life I grew up in, the neighborhood I grew up in, blaming my environment. And that's what a lot of young people nowadays do. When I don't have a choice because of where I grew up, or because of the people I grew up in, or because my parent didn't do this for me, or because my parent didn't give me this. But are you going to realize that you also had a fault? You also had a decision. You had a choice to make. From that moment, I realized that this is how God works. I started making my choices based on how I want to see my outcome, my end. You know what I'm saying? And by the grace of God, today, I can say for sure, I have 2 kids, you know what I'm saying? And I've been serving in the house of God, serving, you know what I'm saying, God faithfully, and doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And God has been faithful. God has been good. I've met great people like you know, along the way. And I just thank God for each and every chance and opportunity to live to see another day, raising my children, and just being the man that God has called me to be, to share his gospel around the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Before we even go more into like you being born again and coming to Christ, we've talked about the story multiple times, and I was here a different part of it, but I think there's another part that you left out there. These two, there's one time you found drugs somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's another time that you also nearly got shot again.
Yeah.
Let's go into details over there.
Yeah. So it was the part where it was a time where I was staying, excuse me, I was staying at my friend's house. Mm-hmm. No, actually not the one that's the paralyzed one. You know what I'm saying? So when I had moved away from that guy that was smoking, the friend I was staying with, where his roommate was smoking, and I went to live with my mom, and of course me and my dad didn't get along, and I went to live with my guy that's paralyzed. So I was there, and one night, I think it was like my country's independent night. Mm-hmm. So, and I was a friend that had the car, of course. So we all got in the car, me, my friend that was paralyzed, and 2 other friends. We all got in the car, and we're going to this party. It was like 12 o'clock midnight. We're going to the party, and we decided to pull over to the gas station. And I believe this was another test from God. You know what I'm saying? So we go into the gas station, and all of a sudden, I open my side of the door. I don't know why. As soon as in the middle of the gas station, the light is on. It was in the middle of the night. I open my side of the door. I see a big bag of whatever. At that moment, I didn't know what it was. But me being you know what I'm saying, coming back, like my mind from the street. The moment I seen it, I picked it up. I didn't care if it was money. I just, as soon as I seen it, my mind, 2 things ran into my mind. I knew it could be weed. I know it could be some type of drugs, and I know it could be money. So I picked it up, put it in my pocket, and I didn't want anybody around me to see it, right? So I picked it up, put it in my pocket. It was hard. It was like one of those hard things. So put it in my pocket. So while we're driving, I'm wondering, like, oh, what is this? So I end up showing my friends. I'm like, man, I don't know what this is. Now, remember, I've never encountered any other drug but marijuana, just marijuana at this point, since I was from high school. But when we opened this drug up, it was another level of drug. We called it on the street, the boy, like the boy. It was heroin.
Wow.
Yeah, this was heroin. So it was like the hard heroin. This is the type of heroin whereby like people melt in spoons and they shoot in their veins. All right. So I'm like, oh man, my friends was like, bro, do you know how much? Like, it was a big bag. You know what I'm saying? So the heroin is divided in balloon, like they call it balloons. Like, you know how we marijuana, you break marijuana down into grams. So a gram of heroin is called a balloon. Like it's small. But one gram like this, you can sell it anywhere. You can sell it anywhere between like maybe $20, $25, $30. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's really expensive. Like, you know what I mean? But it's very addictive. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't have nothing. I have no knowledge about this. And I didn't know how to sell it because I'm only used to selling, marijuana at that point. You know what I mean? So I'm like wondering like, okay, what do we do with this? So me and my friends start wondering like, okay, what do we do with it? You know what I'm saying? We've never encountered this before. But in my days of coming up, you know what I'm saying, on the streets and on drugs, I had made a lot of friends outside of my circle. Like, you know what I mean? Like that we call on the street OGs. You know what I'm saying? These are older guys that had our backs. If we would call them, they would, you know what I'm saying, they would help us in situations that we need. So I called one of my OGs. I'm like, man, I got something, man. I just want you to take a look at it for me and see what you could help me with. So when we went to see him, man, he was like, yeah, man, I can get rid of this for you. You know what I'm saying? When we calculated how much the amount that was there, it was over $7,000 worth of drugs.
Wow.
Yeah, worth of heroin. So I gave it to him. I was like, man, sell it for me. Just give me this amount. You know what I'm saying? When you sell it and take the rest. You know what I mean? So I gave it to him. So he was taking too long to sell it. So he was taking too long to sell it. Like, you know what I'm saying? He was just like, man, it's moving slow. Every time I call him, he's like, man, it's moving slow, man. Heroin don't move as fast as weed. Everybody smoke weed, but not everybody smoke heroin. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get the high level drug addicts. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those who are really on crack. Like, you know what I mean? Not Columbus, you know what I'm saying? There's certain places, you know what I'm saying? And certain drug dealers can't go certain places. You know what I'm saying? Like we're saying, like,
it's like territory.
Yeah, everybody has territories. So you can't be going and selling in other people's territories. So maybe the territory my guy was in, his territory didn't have a lot of heroin addicts. They had a lot of like drug addicts, like marijuana addicts. But there are other territories that, you know what I'm saying? So I just went and I told him, I was like, bro, like, give me whatever you have sold, and then like, let me just try somewhere else. So I called another drug dealer in another territory, and I was like, look, bro, I was like, I got something here, man. I just want you to get rid of it for me, you know what I'm saying? So I told him what it was. He's like, yeah, man, I got you, man. My brother. He said my brother would get that off you. You know what I mean? So this was yet again another friend that I went to high school with. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was also in the drug, and that was also in the streets, in the hood, and, you know what I'm saying? It was a gangbanger, stuff like that. So I was like, let me just get, you know what I'm saying, call him. So I called him, so we set up an appointment. So now when I'm going to this appointment, it's crazy because I'm still staying with my friend that was in a wheelchair. So I didn't take him with me because I know this is a drug deal we're about to go do. He told me that his brother would take this off of my hands for the whole amount. Like, I just give him what I got and they'll give me cash for it. So I'm like, okay, this is going to be a transaction where I'm going, money's going to be transferred. But I didn't want to bring him with me. And thank God I didn't bring him. But before we go, mind you, at this point, we're going to church now.
So you backslid again.
I backslid again. At this point, we're going to church a little bit. So I really didn't want to get back into the drug game. But this opportunity had just fallen in my lap, and I heard it was a lot of money. So I was like, let me just get rid of this real quick. So I didn't want to go through the process of breaking it down, selling it in balloons, or selling it in little quantities. I just wanted to get rid of the whole set. You know what I'm saying? So when I'm going to do this transaction, my friend that I'm staying with, he was like, bro, let's pray.
Did he know that you were going to sell the drug?
Mm-hmm. He knew because like me and him was talking about how we got to get rid of it. He's like, bro, let's pray, bro. Like, I don't know, I have a good feeling about this. You know what I mean? At this point, we were in church, you know what I'm saying? We in God. We know what we was doing was wrong. You know what I'm saying? But so he was like, let's pray. I was like, I bet, let's pray. So we prayed. But I didn't go by myself. I went and got me another friend to go with me. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to take him with me because he was you know what I'm saying, he's in a wheelchair. If it came time to run, something like that, he wouldn't be able to run. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
he would definitely.
Right, he would have been an obstacle. So like, so me and I went and got another friend that, he lost his life years ago. He was also, he got drug overdose. You know what I'm saying? So I went and got him. His name was Charles. So I went and got Charles. Went to Charles. I was like, bro, I got this, bro, but I got a buyer for it. I was like, I just want you to come with me as a body. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking he had a gun with him. You know what I'm saying? Because at the point I didn't have a gun, because everything that I used to have in the streets I got rid of. But I thought Charles had a gun. But Charles told me, like, man, one of my friends just borrowed my gun. I don't have a gun with me. He said, but I got a knife. And Charles was really good with his hands. He could fight, you know what I'm saying? So he was like, I was like, man, I got this knife, you know what I'm saying? If come to push, you know what I'm saying? We could fight our way out of there, you know what I mean? So I was like, cool. So Charles took his knife, you know what I'm saying? And then he came. We went, we parked, we went to like an abandoned building, you know what I'm saying? So we parked, the place was a little bit dark. And I'm on the phone with the dude. You know what I'm saying? The guy that I was about to sell this drug to. And he called me. He's like, that's you in a red car? I'm like, yeah, that's me in a red car, bro. Where you at? He's like, man, I'm pulling up. Not knowing that I'm in an ambush. Not knowing that he set me up. Like I'm in a setup and an ambush, man. So he pulled up. I opened the car. Now, mind you, it's a 2-door car. My friend Charles is sitting in the back. You know what I'm saying? He comes in, sit in the passenger seat. Now, I got the drugs under my seat. You know what I'm saying? I don't got it in the open because I want to see first who's, you know what I'm saying, money. This is how the transaction work. I see the money. You show me the money, I should give you the drug. So he sit down and he pull out the water money. Now, because I've done it for quite a while now, I'm kind of sensitive to certain ways of how people act when it comes to drug deals. If you have told me, you know what I'm saying, on the streets, you have to be very sensitive and very smart. If he had told me, his brother will buy it from me. But now we get at the point where I'm not seeing a brother. I'm only seeing him. And he comes up pulling a wad of money. So I'm looking at him like, hold up, bro. Where your brother at? You know what I'm saying? Because in the street, you can't trust nobody. It doesn't matter if you knew him from 2 years ago. When it comes to doing this kind of life, you can't trust nobody. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at it suspicious. He was like, bro, don't worry about it, bro. I got the money right here. I'm like, but where your brother at? He was like, bro, my brother just gave me the money. Come get it off you. I'm like, all right, bet. Not knowing that we surrounded. And he's the one that set it up, right? But the thing is, he set it up in a way where all three of us going to get robbed, and they're going to make it seem like he's getting robbed too, so that we think he's not, you know what I'm saying?
Involved.
He's not involved. So the moment I go down to get the drugs, right, I look in the rearview mirror, there's an AK-47 to my head.
Oh, man.
There's an AK-47 to my head. But as soon as I try to put the car in reverse, and the guy was like, don't try it, buddy. I'm gonna blow your head off. So I put the car back in drive. They dragged me at the car. You know what I'm saying? They drag him out the car, and the dude standing on top of me like this. That moment right there, my life flashed in front of me. My life flashed in front of me. But yet again, this is another test that I just failed. Because remember, I told God, like, God, take me out. If you help me from going to prison, I would serve you for the rest of my life. And yet I have made, you know what I'm saying? I failed the first test, but I realized my fault. And I made the decisions to try to, you know what I'm saying, go to church and start serving God. But then another test comes like, okay, now you're serving God. Now you're in church. But let me see if you're really, really, really serious about this. If you really, you know what I'm saying, committed. Let me put a drug out of nowhere. Can you imagine, like, out of nowhere? Nobody. I just found the thing right there. You know what I mean? So right there at that point, you know what I'm saying, my life flashed in front of me when that dude was standing on top of me with that AK-47. I didn't know if he was going to shoot. I didn't know if he was, you know what I'm saying, the place was dark. If he would have shot, they would have ran off. Nobody would have known, you know what I'm saying, who shot who, you know what I'm saying. We both lost our life. So, So he just asked me, take everything out your pocket. I took everything out of my pocket, gave it to him. You know what I'm saying? They took all the drugs that we had, you know what I'm saying, lost it all. And then they just ran off, you know what I'm saying? They ran off, but then, remember, like I said, I had OGs. You know what I'm saying? I've been in the street for a minute now, so at the point, I had OGs. Now, this is a different hood that I went to. You know what I'm saying? So this hood that I went to in Columbus, they are a very strong hood. Like, they're a very known territory. Like, so, you know, they let us go. They ran off after they take our drugs and everything in our wallet and stuff like that. And then we got back in the car, we drove off. The moment we get home, I went and dropped my friend Charles off first. And his mom, once his mom found out that I just got him in a situation where he almost got killed, oh wait, his mom was mad at me, man.
He told his mom?
His mom was home. And then when we got to the house to drop, because he was staying with his mom. So when we got to the house, you know what I'm saying, he was mad, like we just got robbed. His mom was like, man, you gonna take my son in that situation? So I just had to apologize, you know what I'm saying? Because we both could have lost our life. And it would have been my fault because I brought him into that situation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, you know, I get back, I dropped him off, and I went back to my guy that I was staying with, you know what I'm saying, that was in the wheelchair. I told him we just got robbed. So immediately, me and him get in the car, we went to the hood to get our OGs. We tell our OGs, and mind you, our OGs are top, like, what at this point, they were all African guys, but they were all gangsters. They're credit card fraud, cocaine. I mean, these are guys who are doing it. AK-47s, man. Like, so we, we went to get them, and then we tell them what just happened to us, and we tell them the hood that just robbed us. Oh man, they all got in SUVs. You know what I'm saying? We followed them. They went to the bar, picked up more dudes. You know what I'm saying? Went to the house, guns, AK-47. Now I'm telling you, they want me to take them to where I got robbed. You know what I'm saying? So they can really kill these dudes. They was about to kill them. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we get in the car. Now mind you, I was doing this thing, but I'm not really a bad guy. I'm just doing all of this just to make money. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was because of money that I did this, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, the second thing. So we get in the car. I accompanied, we went to the house. I'm talking about, you got dudes in the car, guns loaded, and they start sniffing coke right there and there, sniffing coke. They ready to kill. Like, you know what I'm saying? One of their little homies just got robbed by a known hood. You know what I'm saying? So now it's a hood situation because y'all just robbed somebody from our hood. So now we about to go and retaliate. But it was based on what I say. You know what I'm saying? So now I take them to the place we got robbed. The guys that did the robbery, they didn't expect us to come back. So they
were still there?
They standing there.
What?
Yeah, they standing there, you know what I'm saying, in their hood, in their neighborhood. But they didn't expect, they just thought we were some peons, like we weren't about to do nothing, like, you know what I'm saying? So we pulled up. You know what I'm saying? So, but mind you now, when we got to the place, there were on one side of the street, there was an apartment complex. The other side of the street was the apartment complex where we got robbed. So me and my friend that was with me, that was in a wheelchair, I didn't want to bring him to the place of shooting. So I turned the other way. So they called me. It was like, as soon as my OGs came, they turned to the place. They all got out of the car, put all of them in gunpoint. You know what I'm saying? And they called me, Prince, who robbed you? Who is the guy that robbed you? I'm there like, oh boy. The moment I say this guy, bow, this guy, bow, this guy, they shooting him. So I looked at them, because mind you, at this point, I'm in church now. I'm following God. I can't have no blood on my hands, man. So I told him, I was like, nah, this ain't even them, bro. This ain't even them. I was like, you sure? Are you sure, bro? Wait, we can off them right now, like. I was like, nah, that's not them. So they let them go, man. And then we drove off. OGs went home. They was like, bro, we looking for them, bro. If we find them, bro, we got you. Just let them know. Let us know, bro. You know what I mean? So we went home. The next week, the following week, that same area that we got robbed, 2 dudes did the same thing and got killed in that same apartment complex, that same area. So everybody gathered, you know what I'm saying? When a murder happened like that in the hood, a lot of people come, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that to try to see what's going on, who got killed. So everybody, me and my friends, me and my OGs called me. They was like, bruh, that same area you got robbed, somebody just got killed over there. Let's go over there. Your guys may be over there. The guys that robbed you may be over there. So we all got in the car. We driving over there. As we're driving, we see them that robbed me, bro. We see them that robbed me, bro. As soon as they seen us, they seen my car, they took off again. Because now they know, like, oh, Prince got back up. You know what I'm saying? They took off, man. So that was the last encounter we had with them, bro. But we ain't, you know what I'm saying? We ain't follow them anything. We just realized, like, that point, I just saw, like, man, that could have been me. You know what I'm saying? Those 2 dudes that just got killed, that could have been me, bro. You know You know what I mean? So that was a situation whereby, like, you know what I'm saying, the second test where I failed miserably. But after that, when I just felt like, man, like, God is really after my life. You know what I'm saying? When God is after you, like, sometimes you feel like, sometimes the situation that happened to us, it feels like it's the devil, but it's not. It's actually God taking you through series of tests to try to prove who you really are. Because some people go to church, pretend to be Christians, pretend to be serving God, pretend to love God, but in the background, they're doing things they're not supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? God is taking them through different trials where they're failing and they're not really, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, the scripture says, when we stand before God in judgment, our works will be tried, will be tested. You know what I'm saying? So what does that mean? Like, the works, the things that you did on this earth, they will be presented before God. And God, you know what I'm saying? If you never repented, if you never turned away from evil, turn away from your bad ways, but you go into church, but you're still doing things behind the scenes, making it seem like you're perfect, or making it seem like, you know, at a point in your Christian walk, you gotta admit, you gotta come to the point in your life where you be like, okay, let me really live the real Christian life. Let me be the real believer that people see me in church raising my hand to be. Are you just going to church, raising your hand, pretending to be a Christian, but in the night you're laid up, you know what I'm saying? You're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, or you're drinking, you know, you're smoking, you know what I'm saying? So to be a child of God and to be a Christian, there is a lot that comes forward with that, you know what I'm saying? To really, truly serve God, you know? So, but I thank God that, you know, I have, since those days, I have lived and walked in the ways of God the best I can. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm nowhere close to perfect, but I have walked according to the will of God, you know, following my mandates. And I have a lot of, nowadays, people, when they see me, they be like, man, where have you been? It's been a long time we haven't seen you. But I know it's different because I have 2 kids that I have to be an example to, that I have to live for. So I can't put myself in any situation whereby I jeopardize that, you know, or I hinder my children. So now I thank God for, you know what I'm saying, giving me that chance to be able to not only live as an example to the world, but to my children, to my kids, you know, who are watching me every day and wanting to be like me, you know. And my advice to the world and to generations out there, this generation out there, is like, let me tell you, everything you do in this world will be tried. You will go through hurdles. You will go through several testing. But are you going to be able to stand before God? Are you going to be able to, you know, when God asks you, okay, what did you do with the gift that I gave you, with the talent I gave you, with the anointing I gave you? I called you, but you didn't hear me. You didn't listen. What are you going to tell God when you get before the judgment seat of God? You know, a lot of people think, oh, you know, I got to live my life. But your life that you're living, what does it entail? What are you doing? Are you helping the world? Are you helping your community? Are you being an example? Is your life a proof of God? You see what I'm saying? So I pray that anybody that's watching this, or that's watching this now, will see that. Let me tell you, you know, whatever you're going through, you're not the only one. There are a lot of people who've gone through it. I'm a testimony to a lot of things that many people are going through right now. I can understand. And I'm grateful that I went through that path. I'm grateful that I was tried. I'm grateful that I was tested. I'm grateful that I was tempted, because every temptation that I went through, every trial, every, you know, attack, or everything that I did or that I went through, it was a testimony. It was to build up my story so that I can stand and say, brother, I've been in your shoes. Sister, I understand what you're going through, and I know exactly how to come out of that. God saved me. God set me free, and he can do the same thing for you.
Wow. Amazing. Like I said in the beginning, the first episode, is like God allows us to go through the mess in order to get a message.
Yes.
God allows us to go through the mess in order to get a message.
Yeah.
He gives us those tests so that we can have a testimony.
Yeah.
And one question I have for you is, what would advice would you give to a parent whose kid is going through the path that you're going through? Now, like, if we could turn back the hand of time and your mom is frustrated or your parents are frustrated and they don't know how to help you, how would you advise such a parent?
You know, one thing that I said, you know, the time that I prayed that prayer behind the police car is that I remember the voice of my mom praying in the house. When the time I lived with my mom never stopped praying. It was her prayer that covered me. You know, one thing I would tell a parent right now that has a wayward child or is going through something or don't understand what's going on with their child, that never stop praying. Continue to pray. You know, pray for them when they're not there. Pray for them when they're there. You know, because that prayer that you're praying, you might not see the effect of it now, but one day when your child is out and about in the world somewhere, you know, that prayer is a covering. That prayer is going to be as loud as the day in their ears. You know, never give up praying. Prayer, a parent's prayer, man. That's one thing I've realized nowadays. A lot of parents nowadays don't pray with their children. You know, don't pray for their children. You know, they just allow their children to go about and, you know what I'm saying, give their children in the hands of faith. But your prayer is key. You know, your child might not accept it now, but one day he's going to see the importance of those prayers, because those prayers it's going to be literally like an angel walking behind them. You know? Yeah.
Yes, powerful. It's really important as parents to pray for our kids and cover them. If we don't stand in the gap, who will?
Yeah. Exactly.
Before we wrap up, I know you are an author of right now 2 books or more.
Just one book right now. Working on a second. You know, I got some children's book that I haven't published yet, but that's already in the works and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to talk a little bit about your book and tell us the name of your book, what it's about, what inspired you, and where we can get some of your books?
Absolutely, and I thank you for that. But doing all my story, whatever I went through, one of the things that I really had to reflect on is the fact that me and my father really never had that relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like I said several times during my talk, is like, every time I go home, every time I'm home, even when I was in high school, me and my father always, you know what I'm saying, jammed head, and we didn't have that relationship and stuff like that. And mainly because he was a man, he was a working man. He always worked. He was always working. So we didn't really bond, you know what I'm saying? So when I start growing up and I start really, you know what I'm saying, becoming a man, I felt like I don't need him. I can take care of things myself. So, you know, when I became an adult and I had my own children, you know, I start realizing the importance of a father in a house, and the importance of a father in their children's life. You know, I know a lot of people have gone through situations whereby, you know what I'm saying, there's a separation between the mother and the father, whereby, you know what I'm saying, there's that, you know what I'm saying, contention. But one of the mistakes parents make is that they allow their parents' personal issues to affect the children. I advise anybody, you know what I'm saying, watching this to know that, like, no matter what you're going through with your, you know, boyfriend or girlfriend or ex, or, you know what I'm saying, ex-husband, don't allow it to affect the children. You know what I'm saying? Even though it might, but try your best to work together when it comes to the children. You know what I'm saying? So my book is called Fatherless. It basically tells a story about how, you know what I'm saying, a lot of young people are going through life without a fatherly, you know what I'm saying, figure in their life, and they're being affected by that. You know, the other day I saw, while I was writing this book, I was doing a lot of research, and I saw how this young boy was sitting at a baseball game with his mom. And because, of course, he plays baseball, and he was asking his mom, he said, "Mom, how come Dad never comes to our baseball game? How come Dad is not, you know what I'm saying, don't ever do this and never do that?" So the mom literally had to sit there and try to explain to this kid, you know, saying, like, why the father's not showing up, you know. And the kid went on saying, it's like, do Dad not love me? So the kid is growing up not seeing his father, only seeing the mother. And the mother is, in her mind, she's probably thinking, like, I can do this. I don't need him. But yes, you do. Because there are certain traits that the father carries and his father has that you might not be able to provide, especially when it comes to a male child. So my book talk about abandonment. A lot of children feel abandoned. You You know what I'm saying? A lot of children feel neglected, you know what I'm saying, by their father. They don't feel, because of what they're going, because of the absence of their father, they feel like their father don't love them for some reason. But many a times it's not the case. It has nothing to do with the father not loving you. It has everything to do with the mother and the father's like the tension between them two and the disagreement. Because they don't agree, because of the tension, they've decided to allow that to affect the children. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of young people are growing up and they are traumatized. They are going through mental issues and emotional issues because the part of their father that is supposed to help them in life is not there. That advice, that, you know what I'm saying, that voice is not there. You know what I'm saying? They might have everything from their mother that they need, you know, that nurture, that care, that, you know, that love. But the father bring a certain, you know, thing in their life that they might need to survive. You see what I'm saying? Like, I strongly believe that if me and my father had the bond that we had, that we should have had, that maybe I wouldn't have ended up on the street. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have ended up selling drugs. But my father was never there to tell me the importance of, you know what I'm saying, staying out of the street or going to jail or what. And I never had a father figure to tell me, oh, look, it either ends with you going to jail or with you dying. So when I got into the street, I didn't know what was going to happen until it started happening. And by then it was too late because I was already in deep. But if my father was there, it'd be like, son, you're a man now, and you have to make some decisions. You know what I'm saying? Those little talks but I didn't have that. So my book basically, you know, is mainly for single moms and mothers in general that are raising young people, young men, you know, and fathers that have left, and because of whatever the woman did, they feel like, okay, whatever she's doing, I don't want to come back. I'm going to start a new family. But don't forget that the children that you've had with this woman, they need you as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, put your pride aside and come back home and try to either fix that relationship or try to bond with those children. Do whatever it takes. You know what I mean? So my book is on Amazon currently. And you wrote it about 2 years ago. I haven't done a lot of, publicity about it because, you know, like I said, right now I'm working on my ministry and my relationship, building my relationship with God. And I believe, like, you know, in a couple of years that I'm going to really put some, you know what I'm saying, weight behind it. But I believe that it was necessary for the seasons that we, you know what I'm saying, that we are in now, you know, where a lot of young brothers and sisters are dying, you know, either through police brutality or through, you know what I'm saying, gun violence on the streets, you know. So I would advise that if you really want to understand what is happening in young people's lives, especially young black men, go on Amazon. It's called Fatherless. You could buy it and then just read it and then try to, you know what I'm saying, really understand. It's very touching. So when you're reading it, you'll really get to see yourself in it. You know, so I'm very proud of that accomplishment, and I thank God for that. So it's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon Book Kindle, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah.
Awesome. The book is